What's going on, mi gente? It's your boy Lazy Lightsaber back at it again for another episode today. Today we're going to be discussing the Switch Lite. So if you guys remember, the Switch Lite came out last September of 2019. I've had this thing for a year and I think it is time that we revisit the Switch Lite and see what is going on with this handheld console. What is it? What are its goods, its bads, and is it for you? Are you still looking for a Switch Lite nowadays? Are you still looking to see if it's worth it? Maybe you got some pocket money that's burning a hole in your wallet and you need to go ahead and spend it. So we'll definitely get into all that today on this show. So let's begin. All right, so we're going to start off with what is basically a Switch Lite and who benefits the most from a Switch Lite, right? So the good aspects of it as well. So I want to go ahead and just say basically the Switch Lite is an exclusively handheld version of the Switch, right? It can dock to TV Play, so it's $100 cheaper because of that than the original Switch, right? It's coming in at $200, give or take. Right now, there's a price gouging still in some places, so just be careful with that. It should be $200 if you're buying it at retail. And then it doesn't have detachable Joy-Cons. So the Switch Lite has kind of these Joy-Cons that cannot be removed. They're come as a whole setup with your Switch Lite. It's not like the Switch where you can take them off one at a time or both at a time. So that is a factor as well. So it's exclusively designed to play in handheld mode only. And it might be good for people who just don't want to pay the $300 or are strapped for cash, but they still want, that kind of Switch experience without having to drain the wallet. Times are tough right now. There's a lot of people don't have that extra income to spend on a $300 game console, and they rather have something that's a little cheaper, something that's more manageable, and something that they can maybe spend $300 but come home with some games, some good first party games, some AAA titles, like your Breath of the Wilds, your Marios, your Witcher 3s, things like that. So I want to start off with the good things, right? What the Switch Lite does good. So I want to go ahead and just put it out there. The portability of this console is second to none. It really is. I mean, it's great. It's better than a PSP. It's better than Nintendo 3DS. I mean, it's good. It feels good. It looks good. It plays well. So it has, that going for it. And it's crazy that for $200 on this little portable handheld system, you're playing games like Ocarina. I'm sorry, not Ocarina of Time. Look at me. I'm getting ahead of myself. That's probably coming out next year sometime as a remake, hopefully, knock on some wood. But Breath of the Wild, Zelda Breath of the Wild, games like that, games like The Witcher 3, games like Mario Maker 2, games like Mario Odyssey, games like Mortal Kombat. I mean, these are just some of the big party titles that you can play in just for $200. To me, that's crazy, and that's a great deal. I mean, you can't take that away. You have Doom that's coming too, that's going to be able to play on that. So that's awesome. The screen also looks better on the smaller Switch, but I think that's due to the pixel density because the screen is smaller. It does look better on the Switch Lite. And I think it's a great device for younger kids. So if you maybe have a Switch and you have kids that want a Switch as well, but you kind of have your own big Switch because it's better for you because it docks, but you do want your kids to play on their own Switch, I think it is a great way. You put that thing in a case so it doesn't break and they can go ahead and play, and it works for them well, and their smaller hands will benefit from the size of the console. And the thing looks good. I mean, it is a good looking system. Now the Switch Lite cheddar cheese version or the yellow version, I think that thing is hideous. It might feel good because it's still made of the same material, but as far as the looks, I think it looks awful. I would never recommend that version of it. I personally have the gray one, as I'm sure you've seen in my shots already. So that's the one I rock, and it looks a lot darker in person than it does on these shots. So I actually like that about it. I actually bought a Nintendo Switch gray, so I wanted kind of like that gray theme to continue. So I bought the Switch Lite in gray as well, and I am not regretting it. It actually looks really good. It has like a very dark gray kind of feel to it. It looks clean. So definitely not disappointed with the gray, and the teal blue or whatever that color is. That one looks actually really good as well. Let's discuss some of the bad things that are going on with the Switch Lite, right? So the main Switch Lite gripe that I have is basically the size. Yes, the size is a plus, but it's also for me a huge negative. I have big hands and I feel like I'm cramped for space, you know, and I think that for someone with large hands, I think this is something that may not work for you. I feel like you know, you feel like kind of crammed up when you're using it, and I don't really like that about it. I feel as well as for first-person shooters, and when I mean first-person shooters, I'm actually talking more about like Warface, even your Fortnite games. I feel like when you're like in sniper mode or starting to shoot a target far away, they look like a small tiny dot, too far to even hit on, you know, opposed to you playing on dock on the TV. It's just not, it's too difficult. I think it takes away from the gameplay. So there are certain games that I feel the Nintendo Switch Lite it doesn't work well for those type of games. It doesn't mean that it doesn't play them or run them well. It just means that because it's so small, it does require you to kind of, you know, look really up close at the screen and squinting to see if you get that shot. But, you know, I personally think that that's a negative. And the battery life is mediocre. It's not as good as when, you know, when the thing first launched, everybody's like, oh, it has a longer battery than the big Switch. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. I feel like when you're playing very long game sessions, you do have to have a charger plugged in. You probably can play that for like maybe an hour tops, depends on what game you're playing straight, and you do have to hook up. So you do have to kind of stay near a power cord, I feel, and that kind of takes away from the portability, which is the best aspect of this handheld console. So that kind of eats away at that as well. The other thing I wanted to talk about a year later as well is the multiple Switch setup that Nintendo still hasn't fixed. So if you have multiple Nintendo Switches, right, like you have a Switch and then a Switch Lite, or maybe two Switch Lites, or even two normal Switches on the same account, the system will check you every single time you're playing an online game. It doesn't even matter if it's online or not, just every single time that you're playing a game, to make sure that at the same time your secondary console is not playing an online game as well. So this is a huge headache, right? Because there are times when I'm playing Fortnite or Warface on my big Switch, you know, on my TV dock mode, and then my daughter is playing online Minecraft upstairs and she has no idea that I'm logged in, and then it kicks me out. So it creates this huge inconvenience where I'm like, hey, make sure that you're playing offline, and maybe she doesn't want to play online. Maybe she wants to play, you know, with her friends online at the same time I'm online on a completely different game. So it's not even the same game. And I think that's stupid. I think that's something that really, you know, sucks. And that's not a Nintendo Switch Lite problem. That's actually a Nintendo online problem, but I have to bring it up because chances are if you're getting a Switch Lite, you're getting it as a secondary console, right? And then you have a save file conflict as well. So saving is a bitch, because if you're playing on dock and for some reason you need to leave or someone wants to watch TV, you have to stop, save, right? Download your save file, then hop on your Switch Lite and upload the save file that you just saved on your other Switch to then have the most current file up to date, instead of the system just using the same file all the time. So that to me, it gets really old sometimes, and I just don't understand why Nintendo, you know, has this subpar online service, you're paying 20 bucks for it. I don't understand why they can't have that fixed. I mean, that's something that PlayStation and Xbox have been doing now for a long time, and it's very frustrating that Nintendo is having these issues. So I think it's something that they definitely need to look at. And again, this is not a Switch Lite issue, but I do have to bring it up because it comes as part of the experience when you're having a secondary console like the Switch Lite or even your primary Switch, right? So that's inconvenient as well. And then for some reason, because you have two Switches, now one has to be the primary Switch and then one has to be your secondary Switch. But the secondary Switch requires you to have an online connection all the time. So it turns out that my big Switch became my secondary Switch, or my bitch Switch, right? And then my Switch Lite became my primary one because that's the one I'm probably taking out of the house where I don't have constant online connection, which it is required to play downloaded games that you don't have cartridges for, basically. So that becomes a huge issue as well. So in conclusion, man, I mean, just to let you know, should you grab a Switch Lite 1 year later? Yes, I think you can and you should if you have certain specific things that you want to do. If you fall into specific categories, like if you want to play handheld, just handheld, exclusively handheld mode all the time, then yes, probably the Switch Lite would be best for you. Or if you're buying a secondary Switch for a younger family member, or if you're strapped for cash basically and you still want to have a Switch experience, but you don't have the $300 to get yourself a full grown Switch. My kids use it, they love it. I'm completely enjoying it as well. I don't want to make it seem like I'm not enjoying it. I do, especially with all these new Mario games that are coming out. I think the Switch Lite is perfect for that. I think if you have the money to buy a big Switch, and money is not an issue, all right, and you're gonna buy your first Switch, I think you should go with a big Switch. If you're gonna buy a Switch for an adult, not a younger person, who will play on dock, who will play on their TV, I think you should go for that version as well, the big Switch. I think if you have the money to throw at it, why not have the big Switch with a chance to play on dock? And there may be a possibility that you don't play on your TV, but it's nice to know that you have that option. That's the whole reason of having a Nintendo Switch. It switches from TV mode to handheld mode. So if you can have the ability to do it, why not, right? But again, I do believe that the Switch Lite, there is a market for it, and it is valuable for those people, and they will get a lot out of it. So let me know what you guys think in the comments section below, and let me know if you guys plan on getting a Switch Lite 1 year later, or if you've already had a Switch Lite and you've been experiencing any issues with it. Really quick, I do want to mention the drift issue. I am King Drift. If you have seen my videos before, I do have a whole playlist regarding my drift experience. But knock on wood, I've had this Switch Lite for a year and I have not had any drift. That's right, I have not had a single drift issue with my Nintendo Switch Lite. So that's pretty cool there. If you are, again, call Nintendo, they'll fix it for you. Well, it's your boy Lazy. You guys take care, stay safe out there, and be easy.